Hello and welcome to Wine Wednesday. We're at week 21 after a couple week break that we went to Boston for a college trip. So we're happy to be back. And what's today's Wine Wednesday question, Carrie?
Our Wine Wednesday question today comes from Frank, and Frank is wondering if we have planted any new grapes in 2021.
We have. So we have planted Montepulciano and Grenache this year.
Freddie, can you explain a little bit more about those two varietals since they are a little bit less common for most people?
Sure. Probably the one that people might know a little bit more than would be Grenache. So Grenache is a Rhone variety, sometimes bottled alone, but oftentimes used in what's known as a GSM blend, Grenache Syrah Mourvèdre. So it's a red variety, again, grown in the Rhone region of France, and it is typically pretty light in color and in body, but it has some really neat kind of earthy and berry qualities too. So it's a really fun grape. I'm really looking forward to having it as a new grape to add to our lineup at KFB. Montepulciano is known as, probably better, more widely known as Montepulciano d'Abruzzo, which is from the Tuscany region of Italy. So Abruzzo is actually the name of the city that the grape comes from originally, and it is light medium bodied, not a super big wine, but just a really nice kind of very typical Italian flavors that have, it's a kind of a medium structured wine, medium bodied wine, nothing big and over the top. So fantastic food wine.
How many years, Freddie, will it take before we can actually get enough grapes off of these vines?
Yeah, so typically it's between 3 and 5 years. Some vineyards with really deep soils that are really rich can start producing fruit pretty decently in year 3. With us at Cave B, we have really rocky soils and not real deep soils, which to us we really like that because we're able to manage the vigor of the vines with the soil not inconsistency, but soil shallowness. So it really helps us as far as a viticultural thing. But as a result, we typically don't get a bearing vine for about year 4 or 5. So typically in our 5th year, we have a decent crop that comes off of the vineyard.
Thank you, Freddie, for that explanation. One last question here before we go. Out here, as I'm sure most people know, and a lot of people are experiencing, we are having record-breaking heat, especially over here in Eastern Washington. We've been hitting highs of 113. I actually knew somebody that said at their house they hit 120. It hasn't been quite that hot in Quincy, but 113 most definitely, which is unheard of here.
Yeah.
How is that affecting the vines?
So that's a great question. And yes, I can never remember a time period as hot as we've had, like even in August. So it's really pretty something pretty unique for us here. As far as how it affects the grapes, I think the number of days we've had are not going to be a huge issue. Now, if you have really sustained heat for a long period of time, actually, believe it or not, it actually delays ripening, because what happens at about 90 degrees Fahrenheit, a grape's happy place when it's doing the best is between 80 and 85 degrees. That's when there's tons of photosynthesis happening. The grapevines are just pumping along and doing what they need to do to mature the grapes. Once you hit about 90 degrees, photosynthesis really slows down. And when you hit about 95 degrees, it pretty much stops. Photosynthesis just stops, and basically the vine kicks into survival mode. So it's just pulling water out of the roots, which we're watering heavily right now because we do have shallow soil, so we're watering everything a lot. So it's basically just pulling water out of the roots and bringing it up through the vines and aspirating it out of the leaves to just keep itself cool so that it survives and the leaves don't wither and die. So that's basically what's happening. So if you have long sustained times of high heat, then it can affect ripening and it can delay ripening in the vines. And then you have other things like sunburn and things like that happen as well. So I'm hopeful, and I don't think we'll see too many issues from what's happening right now, if any at all. So yeah, I think we'll be okay.
Thank you for that information. That was very interesting.
All right. Thank you, everybody. See you next week.